If you're watching this on Legacy of Survival, subscribe right now, because what we're about to go through is the kind of knowledge that separates casual history fans from people who truly understand the mechanics of survival. When we dig into WWII food strategies, we're not just talking nostalgia or trivia. We're uncovering the systems, ingredients, and preservation methods that kept entire populations alive when logistics broke down, when convoys were sunk, and when supply lines were strangled. These foods weren't glamorous, but they worked, and many of them have quietly survived into the modern prepping world for a reason. So stay with me for this first minute, because once you understand how these foods functioned under the harshest possible conditions, you'll see why they still deserve a spot in any serious survival stockpile today. And yes, make sure you're subscribed, because this is what we do here. Take history apart and extract the parts that still matter. Salted and dry-cured fish remained a lifeline when fresh protein disappeared. Across Europe and the Pacific, dry-cured fish was as common as it was unappreciated. The method goes back centuries, but during WWII it became essential again because it didn't require refrigeration, could be transported long distances, and retained dense, usable protein for months. Stockpiling it today is surprisingly easy. Commercially prepared salted cod, anchovies and Scandinavian-style dried fish all store exceptionally well in airtight containers. If you ever need to use it practically, soak it in water to cut the salinity, then cook it into stews or fry it with root vegetables, exactly the way families did in wartime Britain and Portugal. One effective modern approach is to buy a bulk box, vacuum-seal portions, and keep them in a cool pantry as a long-term emergency protein reserve. Evaporated milk kept entire households functioning even with rationing cuts. Fresh milk was one of the first things to disappear on the home front. Evaporated milk stepped in as a dependable, shelf-stable alternative that could be used for cooking, thickening, and adding nutrition to otherwise bland meals. Today's prepper shelves often overlook it in favour of powdered milk, but evaporated milk is richer, longer-lasting, and far more versatile in cooking. You can incorporate it into sauces, breads, soups, and even improvised coffee creamers. For stockpiling, rotate it every year, using the older cans to make fortified porridge or creamy vegetable soup, just as wartime families did when they needed high-calorie meals with minimal ingredients. Dried eggs served as a crucial protein source and baking ingredient. In WWII's, dried eggs were the hidden engine of baking. Without them, cakes, breads, and even basic binding for meatless patties would have been impossible. Today, dried eggs still store exceptionally well and require almost no space. What makes them valuable isn't novelty, but reliability. Mix them into pancake batter, survival bread, or even homemade pasta to recreate the same wartime strategies used by field kitchens and home cooks. If you're building a modern stockpile, keep one airtight container in use and a second sealed container as a long-term reserve. That rotation alone mirrors the wartime household method of ensuring nothing went stale. Oatmeal and porridge oats allowed families to stretch meals without losing nutrients. During the war, oats were one of the few foods that rarely disappeared from shelves because they were cheap to produce locally and, well, incredibly filling. They weren't eaten just as breakfast. They became extenders for stews, meat substitutes, and even dessert bases when sugar was scarce. Oats are still one of the longest-lasting grains you can store. If you keep them in sealed mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, you'll have a caloric powerhouse that can last for years. You can apply this today by mixing oats into ground meat to double your portions, or simmering them with dried fruit for a calorie-dense survival meal. Canned liver products delivered critical iron and fat when nothing else did. Foods like canned liver pâté and liver sausage weren't wartime luxuries, they were nutritional necessities. Iron deficiency was common, and liver was one of the fastest ways to fix it. Modern survivalists rarely talk about this category, but it remains one of the most nutrient-dense canned foods available. Stockpiling a variety of liver spreads can give you ready-to-eat meals with virtually no prep required. You can use them today on crackers, mixed into rice or stirred into broth to instantly increase its nutritional value, replicating exactly how soldiers and civilians used them when meals were otherwise poor. Hardtack and wartime crackers survived because they simply don't go bad. Hardtack existed long before the Second World War, but ration crackers made from similar formulas became widespread in field rations. These dry, dense biscuits were nearly indestructible and lasted for years. Stockpiling them today is simple. Either buy long-lasting survival crackers or make your own with flour, salt and water, then bake them until completely dry. The practical application is straightforward. Use them as emergency bread, crumble them into soups, or top them with canned spreads for an instant, filling meal, exactly the way troops did from North Africa to the Pacific. Rendered animal fats acted as cooking fuel and calorie boosters. Lard and tallow were survival essentials during the Second World War. They served as cooking fat, a calorie source, and even candle material when electricity was unreliable. Modern kitchens have moved away from these fats, but survivalists still benefit from them. If you store commercially prepared lard or tallow in sealed containers, you've got a fat reserve that lasts far longer than butter or oils. You can apply it today by frying vegetables, enriching soups, or mixing it with oats and flour to make emergency stovetop biscuits, just like those wartime recipes used when rations were tight. Tinned puddings kept morale intact while delivering dense calories. Wartime Britain popularised canned puddings, sticky, dense desserts high in calories that survived storage and transport. This wasn't just about comfort, it was about maintaining energy levels during rationing. These days, tins of treacle pudding or canned bread remain practical morale foods in any long-term stockpile. Rotate them by opening one every few months to maintain variety in your pantry, then replace it with a fresh tin. This simple cycle keeps your reserves stable, just as wartime households did when they tucked away special treats for hard weeks. Dehydrated soups provided complete meals with almost no fuel use. Wartime dehydrated soups required little more than boiling water, making them perfect for fuel shortages. Modern equivalents are instant soups and bouillon-based mixes that store for years. Keeping them in your pantry means you can turn a handful of ingredients into a complete meal. Combine a packet with oats, dried vegetables or tinned meat for a fast, high-calorie dish using the same minimal fuel strategy employed by families during blackouts and soldiers in the field. If you want more historical deep dives and practical survival knowledge rooted in real events, make sure you subscribe to Legacy of Survival and share this guide with someone who values history that actually teaches something.